Nigeria has been a topic of public debate for years. Now, as every successive government has not been able to take the bull by the horn to begin the full deregulation of the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry due to the adverse effects on the action on masses, which is also will always be greeted by fierce opposition from citizens. Considering the huge amount of money spent subsidizing fuel in the country and its financial implications, the federal government announces plans to remove the controversial petrol subsidy before the end of the current administration, but later suspended the plan, indicating that the move will be problematic and will exacerbate the hardship Nigerians are facing at this time, while there have been calls for a holistic and well-phased approach towards subsidy removal. Anxiety continues to prevail as the possible effect of such decision, despite being economically expedient, is the nation's fiscal position will not be further jeopardized. Now, given the adverse effect the subsidy removal will have on citizens, particularly the lower and middle class, the big question is, is it fair to call the planned subsidy removal a bad decision at this time? Or do we need to remove this in phases? Let's understand all of this and provide some answers to all of the questions that I'm sure will also be running through your mind as viewers, and it's also running through my mind too here. I'm being joined by a partner, senior economist and SPM professional, a friend of the house, Mr. Paul Alaje. It's good to see you, Mr. Alaje. Thank you so much for your time, despite your tight schedule.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. Good afternoon.
Mr. Alaje, I will start this discussion this way. The PIA came so well, and we all took it hook, line, and sinker, believing that, yes, this is the turnaround we've been expecting for Nigeria's oil and gas industry. But at the moment, we had to wait for 18 months to defer subsidy removal. Finally, we are getting to that point where subsidy will be removed. Let's start with the issue of trust. Do you think Nigerians would agree with government 100% that this can go and all that is promised will be fixed to cushion the effect of the negative or the negative fallout of this move by government?
Thank you so very much once again. It's important for us to know that the impact of subsidy in our economy is devastating. 6 trillion naira for six. If you look at what government plans to do after the administration of President Buhari, it's as though the current administration has hit the can down the road for the next administration to find a way to deal with it. And the argument would be that government is a continuum. Unfortunately, when you look at the issue of subsidy carefully, you want to ask, what are we actually subsidizing? Are we subsidizing PMS, or we are subsidizing poor policy and weak exchange rates? Or more importantly, we are subsidizing efficiency of government to maintain national infrastructure. I'll tell you that the response to this will be what we are subsidizing remained poor exchange rate. If exchange rates were to be what it was in 2015, today, nobody will talk about subsidy because the price of PMS will be just what we are buying it. Unfortunately, because we don't produce enough, and when you look at what dollar rate is at the parallel market, even at official rate, you have seen balancing said they would want, when subsidies remove, petrol should be around 400, 450. And oil marketer had said it's going to be around 700, 750. That dominated most of the headlines this morning. But what I can tell you is that President Buhari administration, like I mentioned to you about 3 years ago when you interviewed me, also from Abuja where you are in Lagos, and you have said the government have said bye-bye to subsidy. That was in 2000. And I mentioned to you that government is only hiding in the wave of COVID. Reality will dawn on them the moment COVID was over. Before the end of 2020, suddenly what government said was no. Babacha. So Olusegun Obasanjo, the former President Jonathan, and now to President Buhari. It is because The foundation, the fundamental has not been put in place. When you look at countries where they are buying at actual price, what you need to quickly check is their income. President Buhari, upon approval of slight increase in the corn price, he quickly compared Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. What the president did not do is to also mention what was the minimum wage to Saudi Arabia, and Inspector General of Police or a recruit in the Nigerian police, in the Saudi police, how much is he paid? And how much are we paying his counterparts in Nigeria? So if you want to make an argument, you cannot look at only the supply side, but it's important to also look at the demand side. How will Nigeria live in an economy where energy seems to be unreachable, unaffordable, is going to be challenging? Economic theory is so sweet and very deceitful. It is easy to talk the talk, but to walk the walk will be a big issue. What is the talk? The thought is that it's sweet in economics to say remove subsidy, let everything be in the let forces of demand and supply adjudicate price, and you see people will give a lot of argument to why classic economists and neoclassical economists has argued for forces of demand and supply to adjudicate price. But as someone who belongs to neo-Keynesian school, I will tell you that the argument of neoclassical of allowing demand and supply to adjudicate prices, it is not real. At best, it is fake, because the argument is always based on in the long run. And I can tell you, the long run is not the long term. The long term means time. The long run means when you vary off order of production. By the time off order of production are varied, I can tell you that at that time, we are all dead. By implication, government must do the needful. And if you ask me what the needful are, I can tell you one after the other.
Before we get to the needful, Mr. Laji, face by face or face removal of this subsidy, maybe in percentage, is 25%, 50%, 75%, that will get to 100%, is what some analysts have suggested. Not me, I'm not an economist, but that is what they have said. Considering the impact, I am particular about the impact now. Are you thinking along that line? Then another question I asked earlier is, do you think the citizens trust government, that the proceeds of this will go down to improve their lives?
Thank you once again. Let me start with the question I didn't answer regarding trust deficit. It is huge, and year in, year out is getting bigger and bigger. When you saw Nigerian youth protested on the streets of Abuja, Lagos, and a few other places in 2020, they tagged that protest EndSARS. But when you look at the placard many of them carried, it went beyond EndSARS to poor governance, bad economy, and so on and so forth. And for those of us who understood that the government is even dealing with a more significant global realities, unfortunately, Nigerian government and those of many African countries were not prepared to face the reality. I'm not saying there were not some brutality by the police. Just as we have good and bad police, we also have them in our society and in our structure. But the truth is, the economy continues to emaciate, and the economy as it emaciates, citizens will find it very difficult to trust their government that they are making good decisions, especially in Nigeria, where we have seen prices deteriorated, where we have seen infrastructure going down, where we have seen high level of insecurity. So when it comes to the issue of subsidy removal, you recall that the current administration have challenged the previous administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. There was no subsidy. And if there is anything that we had, it was fraud. And that there are people who are cheating Nigeria more or less. Now, the government came on board. I remember in 2016, when Nigeria went into forced recession, one of the ways government said was, we need to slightly increase the cost of pump price, and that Nigeria will feel the impact. The question is, where is the impact of such gradual removal? We have also seen, in the case of another factor of energy, which is power supply, electricity at home. And we ask, when you pay, you are going to see more electricity. I don't know if that is a reality. This is a business program, and you can put up a survey on your Twitter handle or your official handle and ask if power supply has truly improved, or as a result of more pay, we have seen significant increase. But from my personal experience and that of our research organization, I can tell you at best, and to be charitable, we would say status quo has remained. Now, looking at whether Nigeria will trust government or not, I can tell you it will be very difficult for such trust to come. So subsidy should be faced out? I mean, should the phasing out of subsidy should be in phases? Maybe you may not recall. In 2021, I had a show with you, and that show seems to be ubiquitous across major television stations, of course, including yours in Nigeria. And I have said that it is important for us to phase subsidy gradually. But that in itself has a constraint, because it's going to create future expectation increase in price. What does that mean? Government has announced I want to phase out subsidy in batches or in percentage. What you do is that people will now start storing petrol, because they know that very soon government will announce another increase. And this is once the people expect, whether you like it or not, you will still see queue on different gas stations, even though they are still on 5% or 20% or 25% for the first phase, as the case may be. But because people are expecting future expectation of rise in price in near future, so that will happen. Again, even if you increase it in phases, and you don't do something about productivity of the country, because when we talk about inflation, inflation is only revealing our productivity to compare it with the current economic reality. Nigeria productivity is significantly low. And I am thinking that even those that are leading us must ensure that their own productivity and that of the people they are leading, the productivity increase significantly. So because productivity continues to be low, income, of course, would also indicate that it's low. So how do you ask somebody whose income is significantly low, whose productivity is low, to continue to pay high? It will only leave our people deprived. It will leave them higher in poverty bracket, and it will leave them in hunger. And I hope that the incoming administration, by the grace of God, will find the best to ensure that Nigeria is redeemed from the current economic quagmire and many challenges that that is awaiting that administration. From over 77 trillion naira only in debt to challenges of whether fuel subsidy should be removed or not. And I think that there are decisions that are tough that authorities and coming government must take to save Nigeria from the current economic trenches and economic quagmire.
Interesting stuff. We can't talk about subsidy removal and not touch on refining. I guess you agree with me, because many will tell you that, yes, when Dangote refinery comes on board, it's like it's all uhuru. But many will say, no, it's not over until it is over, because Dangote will also have to buy crude from government. So now let's look at refining and what it means. All of the efforts of government to revamp the Port Harcourt refinery, yes, that's almost a part of it. I think it should be set anytime from now, I think the end of first quarter. Same is happening with, I think, Kaduna refinery and one of them, and government is saying this will be replicated. What's your take around refining and how that will help stabilize pricing?
You know, I have joined Labour in a number of conversations, and I can tell you that even the Nigerian Labour Congress is saying don't remove subsidy. The argument of the Nigerian Labour Congress seems to align almost 100% with some of the presentation that I've made. And what is the argument? You can remove subsidy if you have local alternative. I'll quickly say this. We understand that the Dangote Group is about to commission a refinery. But that in economics is very dangerous, because you will leave the fate of over 200 million persons and maybe beyond Nigeria and the rest of Africa in the hands of one man. When you think that he's going to perform economic miracle, I will tell you that we might just be circling ourselves into a bigger danger, because it means that the board of one organization will decide our fate as a country. And I can tell you, if you ask anyone that means well for Nigeria, especially applied economists, they will tell you that such decision is too risky. So when should subsidy be removed? I think we should have the handover, and please let's note this, handover of those refineries that are full. It is not enough for government to keep having turnaround that is not moving around. We need to have an handover. I mean, for national reasons, if you still want to have shares in this company organization, it's fine. We have seen what we did with NLNG. Such agreement will be replicated, but that we are not able to produce crude at all, it means that the supply side locally is near zero. And I think the authority will do something to ensure that those refineries are managed by a private organization, at worst, 60% to private and the remaining 40% could be the interest of government so that they have control and they can make significant decisions.
Interesting stuff. Let's also talk about adding value. Now, many will say that we are here to add necessary value even to what we produce. All we do is export and bring back finished products. What positives do you think is inherent in exploring our oil and gas resources beyond just moving crude and bringing back? What other positives can we look at around that space?
Well, we go back to refineries. For us to export, to add value, when it comes to crude, you need to refine. And that is why Dangote is coming mainstream. That is why Kaduna has just been there wasting assets, not so much is happening to it. That is why Port Harcourt should come mainstream. That is why the remaining 2 other refineries should come mainstream. This is because when you say that you are allowing your refinery to have turnaround maintenance and you are not auditing the turnaround maintenance, you are taking some decisions. Number one, you are saying that your population should remain unemployed. You are saying, and this is real, and you can ask any other economists you have on your program. They will tell you if they want to tell you the truth. What government is saying invariably is that we want our people to remain unemployed. We want poverty to reign supreme in our economy. We want exchange rate to get devalued. And I will tell you the interpretation of each of them. If your refineries are functioning, you certainly be generating more jobs. And if it is not functioning, you will have less jobs to be created. That is the reason why you have unemployed. Now, why do you have a worse exchange rate? Because the price at which you sell crude without value is not the same price at which you sell refined oil. When you refine, you are going to have more in effects than the pressure that central bank and Naira is facing today will not be the case. Unfortunately, the central bank governor and his team cannot suddenly become the minister of petrol or those that will make policies around the petroleum sector. And that is why I think that if government truly means well, this is an area where government should pay attention to. And for us to be progressive, it's important that we start informing the coming administration that what are the things that Nigeria need. Refinery must work. There are 4 of them. How do we invite private sector to make these things that looks as though it's not possible, is not achievable to work? And I can tell you it is possible because we have seen countries with abandoned refinery being picked up by private sector who had mentioned to government what it will take them for some of these non-functional refineries or dysfunctional refineries to become a working one. And government has partnered with them. Today, they are producing. Nigeria still continue to go to such countries to import in some cases, or our neighboring countries go to them to import. What is important is the more we have in supply, while demand remains constant, it will have impact on price. And that is what economics says. So I hope that in the coming period, these refineries will come and we will not just export crude, because it is only when we have satisfied local demand and those of our neighbors that we can now start talking about exporting crude. Inside crude, there are too many things that are in it beyond just selling, and what we are getting in exchange is PMS and a few other products.
Well, interesting conversation with you as usual, Mr. Paul Alaje. So let's see how this, you already set an agenda even for the incoming administration. Well, we'll keep a tab on this and see how it all plays out in the coming months. Subsidy removal seems to be inevitable at this time. I must thank you, Mr. Paul Alaje. He's a partner and he's also a senior economist. He's with SPM Professionals. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate this.